So, I'm going to start making some videos on how to play different classes, and actually the first thing I think I'm going to do is try and help you guys figure out what class it is you guys want to play, for those of you who are starting Spellbreak. So, you have 6 different classes that are possible. You have Pyromancer, the Stone Shaper, Conduit, Toxicologist, Frostborn, and Tempest. So I like Frostborn, and I'll go over why here in a minute. Depending on your playstyle and what you're wanting to play, it's going to depend on your class. So Pyro is for close range to medium range. You really don't want to fight anybody who's close up to you, or who's far off from you, sorry. So some of your weaknesses are going to be people who have Featherfall, people who have Flight, people who can just keep their distance from you, for instance, Frost users, especially Frost. Frost has an ability that allows them to pop a Tundra, which is a circle that is of ice, and if you throw your fireballs into there, it'll block your fireballs out. The only thing that can get through these frost barriers is Toxic, Stone, and Frost. Pyro has 4 abilities to it. It has Combustion, which when you hit somebody or around them, you have a 200% radius that it will actually hit them and do extra damage to them instead of just missing. You have Firefly, which is when you throw your firewall out, which is your sorcery. Your sorcery is called Firewall, and you can throw it out there and it creates a big line of fire in front of you. And then when you run through it, if you have this secondary ability unlocked, this is unlocks in the second circle. When the second circle closes and you enter, you get this ability unlocked. And when you run through it, you get to basically fly in the air for 2 seconds. I think it's 2 seconds. And then it's a good way of escaping. So you can run through it, and then sometimes people will try and chase you through it, and then they take damage, and they get hit by your dot. And your dot, if you hit somebody with your fireball or with any of your flames, they get dotted for a little bit, and it takes damage away even if you're not hitting them. Pretty useful. The only way that they can not have this happen is if they have Hardened on. Hardened will stop them from taking damage from the dots of Toxic or Frost. You have I don't know how to say this, Pyrolysis. I don't know. But it creates a flame wall. When you create your flame wall, it turns it from red to blue, and it does an extra 100% damage for 2 seconds. Then you have Conflagration, and that is when you shoot your fireball out. When it hits something, it impacts, and it shoots out a bunch of little fireballs. So some of the best things to go with fire is Toxic. If you combine fire and Toxic, it creates Dragon Fire. So if you say throw out a Toxic puddle and then you light it on fire, it turns green. So there's red flames, there's blue flames, and there's green flames. Green flames are the highest, and they take 20 damage per, I think it's either second or half second. It's a lot of damage. If you get stuck in a Dragon Fire zone, you're going to eat up a lot of damage very fast, which is why Pyro and Toxic are so damage heavy. So if you want to play this class, your best bet is to get used to being up close and personal and use a rune that is a dash rune, a spring step rune, maybe a flight rune. Flight runes are really good because you can either run away and get really far away from somebody quickly, or you can jump in their face with it and just continue to smack them down when they're weak. Next up, you have Stone Shaper. Stone Shaper is very close range, and you have to be, it is limited to the ground, except for your stone throw, which is your sorcery. So when you use your sorcery and you throw your stone, it creates a big giant boulder, and if you throw it at them, it'll hit them and take a decent amount of damage. Some things you can do to increase the damage that your stone throw does is if you notice somebody is fire or ice, when they shoot at you and you throw your stone boulder, it'll actually hit the stone boulder and make it a different element. So if they are frost and they shoot it, it'll turn it to a frost boulder and it'll do extra damage to them, and it will slow them down. It does a lot of damage. Same with fire. Fire won't slow them though. I think fire dots them. Your abilities are Stone Skin, Bedrock, Acceleration, and Accretion. I think that's Accretion. and then Avalanche. So stone armor, or stone skin, gives you 20 armor at the beginning of the game, and it allows you to, whenever you use your stone attack, it gives you 3 health back, or 3 shield back, until you're full. Bedrock is when you're up in the air, so as I was saying, stone is very limited to the ground. So when you're playing stone, you want to make sure that people, when they're in the air, you need to judge how long it is going to be until they hit the ground, and then you want to stone them on their way down. But one of the things you can do with stone, if you run stone, is you get bedrock, and that is when you see somebody is about to drop to the ground, you can just click in your attack button, and you'll crash to the ground really fast, and that'll allow you to get a hit off really quick. You have accretion, which if you fall away and you throw your stone boulder, it grows in size and I believe does more damage when it hits you. And then you have avalanche, which allows you to have more charges in your boulder. So when you throw it, you can have 2 charges instead of 1. So you can basically spam it at somebody, or you can wait for it to recharge again and then throw it again. A really good ability, or a secondary gauntlet that goes with stone, is Frost. Frost is really, really good for that because of the ability that if you're using... hold on, I'll bring it up. It is... Why can't I find it? Making me look bad. Oh, I found it. Have it. Wow. So you have ambidextrous. Ambidextrous gives you the first ability of your offhand weapon. So if you're using Frost, you get the Alacrity Trails, which allows you to be fast, which is one of Stone's weaknesses. Stone is very slow, so you want to make sure that you are finding a way to get around that by being a little bit quicker. The Alacrity Trails, Frost, make you 150% faster, so you can just zoom through anywhere you want to go, which is really, really useful. And if you're stone, you can hit the Alacrity Trails, and it'll freeze people in place, or at least slow them down when they're on them. So if somebody's following you, like behind you on your Alacrity Trail, you can just turn around real quick, smash the ground. You'll do damage to them, you'll slow them down, and possibly freeze them. They won't be expecting it, and then you can just continue smashing the ground over and over again until they're either dead or they find a way to back off. And at that point, you can either back off, or you can shoot them, or hit them with another shot, or whatever it is you feel like you need to do at that point. A good ruin for this class, particularly, would be like a dash ruin, or a spring step, or possibly flight as well. It's very similar to the pyro, so you're going to want similar ruin to that. Also, one that I left out, especially for this class, and maybe the best one, is the time one Chronomaster. Yeah. Anyways, the Chronomaster would be really useful because the way that you want to use Chronomaster is when you get into a fight, that's when you want to pop it. Most people make the mistake of getting shot, losing half their health, and then popping Chronomaster. And the problem is, you might lose like an extra 70 or 80 health and get down to 20 health. But had you popped it at the beginning of the fight, you could sit there and do a ton of damage to that person, and then you would rewind back in time, back to full health again while they're weak, and then you can press them again and do more damage. And for stone, it's perfect because for one, you get that extra 20 shield, so you're getting even more health than normal, and then you're going to be up close and personal and fighting people. So typically, you're not going to get sniped out of nowhere or take an accidental snipe while you're trying to snipe somebody or hit somebody. You're pre-designing what you're going to do, and when you go in there and you start hitting them, it's kind of your choice when you go into the battle. So it's easier to pop it at the beginning and take less damage that way. So, next up is Conduit. Conduit, if you can aim, is very overpowered. Conduit has potential energy, and potential energy, in my opinion, is very, very broken. But you have to be able to stay on target, which is what's difficult. I cannot stay on target with Conduit. It is really hard to follow somebody while you're trying to move and like maintain contact with them, because Conduit has a very, very small hitbox. The Conduit hitbox is so small that if you're not directly on top of them when you're shooting it at them, it won't hit them. But Conduit is also the closest thing to hit scan that we have in the game. So if you're somebody who's used to like locking onto people and staying on them, Conduit is going to be the best for you. Conduit is far away. You do not want to be in people's faces. You want to be very, very far away from the battle. I would say, in my opinion, Conduit is more of a duos to squads type class, because you don't want people to jump on you, and typically when you're Conduit, if you're in solos, the second somebody sees you're shooting lightning at them, they're coming. And then once they close that distance, you're stuck with your second gauntlet, and I hope you're good with it. So, Conduit has a lot of unique abilities to it. It is one of the most unique classes in my opinion. You get Lightning Bolt, which Lightning Bolt in of itself is really not that great until you reach the third level. I think it's the third. Just the fourth level. So the second and the fourth level go well together. So you get Overload, which when you use your Lightning Strike ability, which is your special ability, you get a Rune Charge with it. And then for the fourth ability, you get Secondary Strike, which gives you 4 strikes instead of 1. So you can hit them 4 times, 25 damage each. That's 100 damage if you can hit all 4. And then on top of that, it stuns them. So they get shocked and they can't shoot you or do anything. They're just stuck floating in the air or whatever it is that they were doing. And then Power Surge also goes really, really well. Like everything is based around your Lightning Strike. Your second, third, and fourth ability are all based on your sorcery. Because Power Surge, whenever you use your sorcery, gives you 100% mana reduction when you're attacking for your spell. So you can basically just sit there and throw your charge out attack and just continuously charge somebody. And this goes really well with Potential Energy, because Potential Energy gives you +1 for every hit you land up to 5. So say you do 12 damage, by the time you're done hitting somebody 5 times, you're going from 12 to 17 damage per hit. And then Conduit shoots pretty fast, so typically that's going to be your 4 seconds of 100% mana. By the time that you're done shooting somebody with your 4 seconds of no mana reduction, they're already going to be maxed out and probably almost dead if you're a good aim. Conduit is really good with speed runes. That's really a lot of classes' weaknesses in this game right now, is they don't have the ability of mobility. Mobility is hard for most classes because they have nothing that's built around them moving quickly. So then you have to pick out your talents and figure out what talents you want to go for that. So I've messed around with Conduit a little bit. I like Athletic. Athletic kind of helps to recover the speed loss. Plus, Conduit is very heavily based off of its special abilities. Its skills. It's based off of its skills, and what Athletic allows you to do is every time you open a body scroll, you basically level up and get your next ability, which is huge. If you can get 3 body scrolls at the very beginning of the game, you have all 4 of your skills unlocked. Then you can just annihilate people because they're still on their first one. So that's pretty much all I have for Conduit. Toxicologist is one of my favorites. I don't play it much anymore, but it's a lot of fun. I like it because it's toxic, and my name is Toxic. And so, Toxicologist does a lot of damage if you can play it correctly. A lot of people don't abuse the Outbreak ability. It's your third ability. What Outbreak does is it increases your attack power by 75% on your Toxic Spray, which is your main attack. So anytime you're invisible, you're doing 75% damage, which means you're going to do a lot of damage, because if you have a gold Toxic, you're doing 50 plus with a regular attack. Your regular attack is 50 plus, and then add 75% to that, and you're doing like 80 plus damage on one hit. And they have no idea you're there generally, so a lot of the times you can pop up, you can hit them really quickly, and then you can get another shot off before they can get away from you, and you can do like a good 130 to 140 damage on them. And then if you're really good, you can throw down your Toxic Ball, jump inside of your Toxic Ball, fly up to them, and hit them again while you're invisible and finish them off. It's one of the only classes that you can kill somebody in a manner of like second and a half. It's just like that because of the damage boost that you can do. You just have to be very accurate and very quick with what your plans are and mapping out where you think your enemy is going to move to once you hit them. So you get Viscosity, which is your puddles. As I was saying earlier, with Pyro, you can combine Toxic Puddles with Pyro, and when you hit your Toxic Puddle, it creates Dragon Fire. You can also throw out your Toxic Cloud. When you throw out your Toxic Cloud, it creates a big bubble of cloudness. They get stuck in it, they get dots, and then you can throw a fireball into it, blow it up, and do a Dragon Fire explosion that does a lot of damage. It hurts a lot if you can hit them while they're inside the middle of it. And it's even worse when there's 3. So, you get Spreading Sickness as your 4th ability. If you throw all 3 of your balls on top of somebody, and then you hit it with an explosion, that person will take the explosion 3 times, which I think is 40 damage apiece, which is 120 damage. There's a lot of ouch. A lot of shield gone. You have Vanishing Mists, so when you throw down your Toxic Ball and you go inside of it, it shoots you out of it and you're invisible for a little while. That's how most people like to use their Outbreak ability, is they'll throw their Toxic Ball out on top of the enemy while you're on top of them, so they'll get hit by the Toxic Ball, and then you'll go invisible, and then you can turn around and hit them with another Viscous Shot, Toxic Spray, and just do a ton of damage real quick. And then, if you really want to be awesome, you can fly out of there and blow it up. So, that is cool. And then, if you want to really get cool, you can use the Ruin of Invisibility or Shadow Step, and then that will do like a lot of damage as well, because you can just turn invisible anytime you want to. And one of the things that I like with this class is to use Runic Fluency. Runic Fluency gives you the ability to use 2 different runes. Not 2 different runes, you get 2 charges of runes, and it makes your cooldown go down as fast. So not only are you having a faster cooldown on your runes, but you're also getting 2 charges of it. So you can go invisible 3 times, which allows you to do a lot of extra damage. 225% extra damage on each shot. That's a lot. And so Dexterity and Mystical are the other 2 that are good. So Mystical gives you max mana, and then Dexterity gives you run speed, which is one of Toxic's weaknesses, is it is kind of slow. So if you run Dexterity, you get a faster boost, and you move quicker. So that way you can catch up to people and do more damage. Frostborn is my main, that is what I use. I like to use, for my talents, I like to use Hardened, Dexterity, and Thirsty. So Thirsty is really, really useful, and you can incorporate it into a lot of your builds. Really, your talents are based on what you think is going to be the best. I have people who I play with who are nasty, and they don't use Thirsty. They like to get their health back in other ways. I prefer Thirsty because when I'm on my Alacrity trails, I can pop a shield real quick and run while I'm running. So I'll be running at 150% speed, and I can be popping a shield at the same time and move out of the way. Really, really useful for if you get damaged. So Frostborn is one of the best classes in my opinion. That's just because I like to keep my distance from people. I don't like getting up close. I mean, I do, but I don't. I like to be able to keep my distance if I can, but I will also shoot you in the face with my bow. So, beware. You have Ice Lance. So Ice Lance is your shot, and then you have Flash Freeze, which is your Circle of Ice. Your Circle of Ice will stop lightning, wind, and fire from entering your little zone that you're in. This way, if you're fighting a wind user, who's a wind and a fire user, they can't do anything to you while you're inside of your tundra, and then you can just sit back and kind of snipe them if you want to. You also have Frozen Alacrity, which is the speed boost that you get. It also makes you immune to slow and freeze. So if somebody shoots your ice trail that you're on, you cannot get frozen and you cannot get slowed, which used to be a problem for the ice user. Was back in the day before they had hardened, you had to run Harmony, which would stop you from getting CC'd at all. CC is crowd control for those. So that would stop you from getting CC'd, and now you don't really need it anymore because you have it built into Frozen Alacrity. Really useful. Is why I was saying Stone Shaper earlier, really good with ice if you're using Ambidextrous, because since that is now locked into your first ability, when you're running Stone, you can't get frozen. Like, nobody can freeze you. You can still jump into somebody's ice box that they got, and you won't get frozen, and you can just go to ground pound. Icicle highlights enemies, so when you're up in the air, here's another thing that I forgot to mention. When you're up in the air and you use your bow shot and you're holding it, you will actually like stay in the air and you can look around and look for people and shoot them while you're in the air. It gives you a height advantage, which makes it easier to shoot anyways. But Icicle makes it to where when you're in the air or on the ground or whatever, whenever you're aiming down sights and shooting, it'll highlight anybody who is in the area and it makes them easier to track. On top of that, when you fully charge your Ice Lance, you do 100% extra damage. Or, no, sorry. The mana cost goes down by 100%. That'd be OP if it did 100% extra damage, because that'd be like 150 per shot. Which is a lot. So, that is useful as well for if you're in the air and you can pull back your bow and fully charge all the way. You're going to do a lot of damage, and you're not going to have any mana cost from it because it drops your mana cost by 100%. Tundra, which is your Flash Freeze, basically, makes it to where you become immune to any damage while you're casting Flash Freeze. And the Flash Freeze duration is 100% longer. So I believe Flash Freeze is usually about 3 seconds, and it jumps it to about 6. Which is a long time to be able to just stand inside of your Tundra. But be wary, if you are fighting a Stone, a Toxic, or an Ice user, they can hit you within your Tundra and actually will. A lot of the times, if you're a Stone user, there's a little tip against Frost users. If they're in their Tundra, you can throw your boulder at it, the boulder will freeze and explode inside of that, and it's the perfect size to hit somebody inside of their Flash Freeze. And it will wreck them. It will do a lot of damage and hurt them. And then you have Ice Prism. And that is the one earlier that I was thinking of, which is the extra damage. If you overcharge for 0.5 seconds, you get 35% extra damage. Which is quite a lot. So if you fully charge it, for instance, with a gold bow, you'll do 72. That 35% extra damage tacked on, you do about 90 something. It's quite a bit of damage. And then if you can mix that with talents that will increase your damage even further. You can get up to I think 120 or something like that if you took all of them and combined the damage that you can get. I would say the best runes to use Frost would be Dash, Spring Step, and Flight. Those are typically my favorite runes just because of the fact that they're mobility, and this game lacks a lot of mobility. And with Frost, the more mobility you have, the more you're able to avoid people, and the more shots you're able to take. The last area is Tempest. Tempest is Wind Shear, so you can shoot at the ground and move areas, which is really important. It's one of the only other classes that has mobility. So when you're moving with Wind Shear, You can shoot the ground, it'll fling you up, and you can hit the walls, and it'll move you throughout the walls and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun, and it's easy to throw enemies off if they don't know what they're doing. A lot of stuff is based around you being in the air, for wind shear, or for Tempest. So you have Wind Surge, which is your wind jump, as I was saying earlier. When you shoot the ground, pop up into the air, or if you shoot off a wall, it'll fling you in the direction opposite of where you shot. You have Updraft, which when you throw your tornado out, that's your sorcery, is your tornado. You can go inside of your tornado, and it'll fling you up into the air, and that way you can decide how you're going to go from there, shoot people, or like try and get away and go heal, depending on whatever it is you want to do. Squall is when you're using Updraft or Wind Surge. So if you're in the air from using Wind Surge or Updraft, you will do 20% damage, and you'll receive 10% less damage. So like I said, everything is based off of being in the air. If you want to do more damage, you need to be in the air, and it needs to be from Wind Surging. You can't just float up in the air and then start hitting people and do damage. One of the funnest things, and one of the best ways to do a lot of damage with wind, is if you're a good shot, you can Updraft into the air, or Wind Surge or Updraft, whichever. And then if you're using Frost, you'll get an extra 20% damage when you shoot them. And it's not the same as the 35% that you get from Frost, but you'll still do a lot of damage, and then you can close the distance on them and wind shear them down. And then you have Sudden Gust, which is if you're in the air, you have 100% cooldown speed, so for your sorcery. So your sorcery cools down twice fast, but you're quicker. The best two gauntlets to go with these is Pyromancer and Toxic or Conduit. Conduit's another really good one because it'll stun anybody. I prefer not to use Conduit because a lot of people use Harden, and Harden is pretty much makes you immune to any CC. So I try to stay away from that if possible. But Pyromancer, you can shoot your tornado, and it'll make your tornado into a fire tornado, and then Toxicologist will do the same thing, but with Toxic. I don't know if I went over Frostborn for the secondary gauntlet. The best secondary gauntlet, in my opinion, for Frost is the Toxic Gauntlet. So the Toxic Gauntlet is really good because it doesn't stop inside of your Tundra. So say you pop your Tundra, and somebody's outside of it, and they're like wind shearing you, it's going to stop your wind shear coming in, but if you were also trying to wind shear them from inside of it, it would stop your wind shear, and it couldn't get out, and so you couldn't do any damage to them. But if you were Toxic, you could shoot them from outside of your Frost barrier. Same with Stone. If you have Stone, you can actually shoot the Stone out of it too, and do a lot of damage that way as well. So, Stone and Toxic are really the best to go with for Frost. And for Tempest, anyways, after Tempest, your best bet for runes are the same three that I've been naming pretty much this entire time. That is Dash, Spring Step, or Fight. Also, if you're going to be more of a close ground and pound type person, because wind is very close ranged, the Chronomaster is also really good. Because again, you're going to be the one deciding when you're engaging, and so when you go to engage the battle, you can hit your Chronomaster rune and just start pounding people, and then you can just trade damage that way, and then when they come back, when your Chronomaster ends, they'll be almost dead, and then you'll go back in time and have full health again, and then you can finish them off. So anyways, I'm going to be doing videos after this as well about showing you how to use these. I just wanted to give you guys a base idea of what you should choose depending on what type of class you're wanting. So if you're wanting close range, you're going to want Pyro, Stone Shaper, or Toxic, or Tempest. And if you want further ranges, you're going to want Conduit. And so I hope this video was helpful to you guys. And let me know if you guys have any questions. I have been playing for a while, so I can help you guys out. See you guys later, and have a great one.